So I've been under a lot of stress lately, and I wanted to make a video that is on the more relaxing side of things, and what could be more relaxing than turning yourself into an orb? And segue aside, this was a real genre in the early to mid 2000s, controlling a ball up in the clouds and solving physics puzzles. So today we're gonna be taking a look at some of these games. The first one is the one I remember playing as a kid, Ballance, and this game's atmosphere has always had a spot in my heart. I'm not into ASMR, but all the noises of the surfaces interacting in this game are just so satisfying to me. And then there are the visuals. You're treated to this beautiful skybox, but underneath you for a change, some soft rolling clouds, and just all the textures and models in general have a warm feel to them. Everything is in order here. Everything here has purpose. Moving on from the visuals, the physics are incredible too. Everything behaves as you'd expect, which is very hard to do in a video game. And thanks to the inertia and momentum, the balls have what it feels like I have force feedback without actually having force feedback. I play this on a keyboard, the only input this game supports, but I never felt that empty feeling you have when you're playing a racing game with a gamepad but the vibration is turned off. It just feels so, I don't know, off, especially if you're used to having it on in most games. But here, I didn't miss it at all, or rather, I felt like I had it, but with the audio and the visuals. The physics on their own are really good too. I can only compare them to something like playing Half-Life 2 for the first time, and seeing the objects just roll around in a realistic way. Both titles came out in the same year too. I had the same feeling with this game. Everything that happened made sense. I never for a second felt like an object behaved in a way it shouldn't have. The main selling point, the puzzles, they're great too. If your favorite game isn't Myst or The Witness, that is. They're simple but rewarding, satisfying to complete. You won't get all of them on first try, but they won't take too many attempts either, which is a nice balance, pun intended. And the concept of switching between balls of different weights, but also doing light platforming alongside the puzzles is great. It holds up really well, even today. Next I tried Marble Blast Ultra, the latest and last entry to the franchise, therefore the most modern one. And it took a wildly different approach to a similar formula. Instead of tight linear puzzles, you have more arena-like levels, with often more than one way of completing them. The ball transformations are also replaced by power-ups you trigger when needed, and even gravity-changing pickups that turn levels sideways or even upside down, which was very cool. Now for a game originally released for the Xbox 360, you'd think a controller is the best way to play this. But due to the wonky camera controls that often plagued early 3D platformers, mouse and keyboard was way more comfortable. And it felt more precise too. The graphics are great. Everything looks clean and sharp and nice, but despite still being high up in the sky, the atmosphere is less steampunk and more early Sonic. There's also something very Hedgehogian about collecting these emeralds. Reminds me of Knuckles levels in Adventure 1 and 2. Overall, it's a fun game that still has that refreshing quality to it that you're controlling a ball and that's it. No worrying about crossplay, season pass or grinding, which was nice to be honest. It's just so different from most games you'd consider playing today apart from maybe like Trackmania. After that I played Vertigo, an even more different take on the be the ball concept, but not too much. You control this cyber orb through an obstacle course without falling while trying to reach the end. But the physics were immediately off. The ball stops on a dime, which was weird, but it's also cyber orb, so I left it at that. But I think the game logic and therefore the physics are running at the wrong speed, because in a later level I was unable to proceed because I simply couldn't make a jump. And there is no jump button. You're supposed to have enough speed from the ramp, but I didn't. Same thing happened later with some fans, so I tried lowering my FPS to 60 and even 30, but it didn't help. It's a PSP game originally, so it's possible that my CPU clock speed is just too high for it, but usually when that happens it's more obvious. Apart from these issues though, the game looks great. I especially like the low poly Cyber City, again reminiscent of an early 3D Sonic level. Later you have access to some ancient ruins type environment, which also look charming and cozy, but due to the physics weirdness I was unable to fully appreciate it. Next I booted up an HD remaster of a 2007 game on Steam called Switchball HD, which I would call a spiritual successor to Ballance. Same steampunk aesthetic, linear puzzle game in the clouds, but with more modern controls, sounds, and as you can tell, graphics. The wooden, stone, and paper balls are now replaced with marble, metal, and an inflatable one, but it's not just a measure to avoid plagiarism. They introduced new mechanics to tie into these elements like magnets and helium inflators. The puzzles feel more obvious yet still rewarding. Surface sounds, graphics, and physics are improved from Ballance where they were already amazing. And the game just looks and feels great. The one thing it's missing compared to Ballance is the mystery and playful trolling, which are very old school qualities and many would find them frustrating by today's standards. But in 2004 they were adding to the immersion as everything was so new, like the iconic fog in Silent Hill. Whether it was done here intentionally or by render distance limitations, it worked back then, but today I appreciate the more civilized way Switchball HD is presented and is handling things. And last but definitely not least, I bought a game called Marble Skies, a spiritual successor to Marble Blast Ultra, the game we've seen earlier. And despite being a bit older than Switchball HD, it has a more modern indie game aesthetic, which I don't always like, but I find it works really well for this particular game. The physics and the camera are vastly improved over the original Ball has and retains more inertia and momentum now, closer to what you'd expect and closer to Ballance and Switchball as well. The game design is mostly intact since the game could be described as an unofficial remaster. I particularly enjoyed the platforming and the emerald collecting levels here, where in the original they were kind of frustrating. I also had an equal amount of control and fun on both on a gamepad and a mouse and keyboard, which is very nice and kind of rare to see in games. It's a simple game, but one you can sink many hours into. And even though I got it for this video, I can definitely see myself coming back to this game and just rolling around completing stuff. It even has a mini golf mode. And I'm aware that games like Marble Madness and Monkey Ball exists, but in this video I wanted to focus on this slice of subgenre specifically as it was so fascinating to me. And for a conclusion, which one do I recommend you try? Well, if Balance seemed more like your kind of thing, I highly recommend Switchball HD, and if you prefer the way Marble Blast works and looks, Marble Skies is also on Steam. There is also something called Marble Lit Up Ultra, which I assume is the same idea. And let me close with a little bit of fun fact and maybe a little bit more than that. Just like the name of this last stage here says, Snakes and Ladders was a popular board game back in ancient India, and this is where the phrase back to square one actually comes from. But to circle back to my intro, we tend to complain about the way new games are or aren't, but don't be afraid to take a step back out of your gaming comfort zone and try something different. It can be very refreshing, and using a different part of your brain can feel very relaxing too. Even if it feels like we're just snakes on ladders, we'll still manage at the end. And that will be just about it for this one. If you had fun, do press all the buttons below. It helps the channel out. Check out my Patreon for video extras and stuff. Or if you wanna support me buying games for videos like this one. I'll link all the games and my other stuff down below, and hopefully I'll see you next time.